Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in our country over the past week or so. And as is usual, I want to welcome to this program all our viewers who are joining us on television in Region 5, Mahaika, to West Coast Berbice, Region 6, New Amsterdam, East Bank, Essequibo, all the way along the Quarantine Coast to Crabwood Creek at the end of Region 6. I also want to welcome our listeners who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Rob Street, Georgetown, and I want to welcome, last but not least, the tens of thousands of you who are joining us from right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, and even further afield. Welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News. I want to invite you, as I would normally do, to press that share button on your computer or on your cell phone screen. Press that share button so that this program can be shared to your friends and followers so that we can have the largest possible audience. Share this live feed as far and as wide as possible so that we can have the widest possible audience engaged with us this evening as we begin our discussions. I must begin by apologizing sincerely for not being with you for nearly 1 month. That is as a result of our parliamentary budgetary debates that occurred during the month of February, and then I had some technical issues beyond my control that prevented me from hosting this program a few weeks after that. Fortunately, I have overcome those obstacles and we are back tonight with another program. So once again, I invite you to join the live feed, share the live feed, and let me see some comments that are coming up. Let me lower the volume. As I said, I have added the feature of reading your comments while the program is ongoing. That helps me to interact with you and makes the program even more interactive. So I see Hari Singh, I see Ramesh Paul, I see Sash Gokul, I see Steve Sokraj. Hi Steve, how are you? And I see Benedict Felix. I see Arjun Jawahir. I see Rajindra Itwaru, New York. I see Andrew Cornelius. I see Shakira Alexi. I see Avinash. I see R.M. Singh. I see Debbie Ghani. I see Mala Ramnath. And I have to stop there or else I will just do that all night. But I just want to hail all of you out and to thank you for joining us this evening and to ask you to continue to encourage persons to join us and to also press that share button. I see Nan Kishore Singh, an avid looker at this program, inviting me to host the program for 2 hours. Well, I don't think that I can do that tonight. Ryan Chitranjan, Roy Suku, and all the others who are joining us tonight. Welcome, 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 and thank you very much for being with us this evening. Invite your friends and followers. Press that share button on the phone as we develop greater momentum and a greater audience. I want to begin by saluting all of our women as today we celebrate International Women's Day. women across the world are hailed today on this special day dedicated to them with the pledge to remove the biases, break the barriers, and ensure that we have, as far as possible, gender equality in all spheres of human endeavor. I use this platform to join the millions of voices across the globe and the hundreds of thousands of voices across our country in my salutation of all of our women on the tremendous and significant achievements they have made in our society, in our country, and in the wider world, to recognize their struggles, to recognize from where they have come, the obstacles that they had to confront, the victories that they have won, the challenges they've had to overcome, and to pledge our continuous support as an individual, as men, and as a government to continue our unwavering battle to remove whatever existing barriers exist that treat women differently from men in our society. Speaking for Guyana, I believe, as a small country, as a relatively young country, as a country with a relatively small population, I believe that we have accomplished a lot in the area of gender equality. We are fortunate to have women of the caliber of Comrade Janet Jagan leading this struggle. Women like Shirley Edwards, and I can go down a long line, Shirley Field Ridley, and a whole set of, I don't want to go down that path because I will be obliged to mention all the distinguished women. But we have had good leadership from our women fraternity, leading the charge in the struggle to bring gender equality. Ours, Comrade Janet Jagan, was recognized by Time magazine, very prestigious publication, in the year 2011 as one of the most rebellious women ever lived. I think that that is a remarkable achievement, and it's a testimony to Janet Jagan's struggles and achievements in the area of women's rights activism and gender equality. We have in our legal system entrenched mechanisms to prevent in any form or fashion discrimination against women on any ground whatsoever. That mechanism is enshrined in our most supreme law, the Constitution, as a fundamental right and freedom. No woman can be discriminated by the state of Guyana or by any public sector or any public agency or any government or any public officer on the ground of gender or on any ground connected with gender. That is a fundamental right guaranteed by our Constitution. In every sphere of activities at the level of the government and at the level of the state, we have policies, we have mechanisms, and we have protective safeguards against discrimination in any form or fashion against women on the basis of gender or indeed on any ground whatsoever. We have in Guyana a Gender and Equality Commission as a constitutional commission set up and established to advance the cause of gender equality and to protect our women against and from discrimination in any form or fashion. Very few countries in the world, very few countries in the Caribbean, very few countries in the Commonwealth have a constitutional commission of this type. Sometimes we need to celebrate what we have accomplished. Sometimes we omit to do so. And it is in these moments and on these occasions we must reflect upon the accomplishments that we have made as a country and as a people, so that we can appreciate what the new challenges are going forward. We have a series of legislation on our statute books, all designed exclusively to advance the cause of gender equality and to entrench equality of the sexes and to protect women and female from any form of discrimination whatsoever. I speak to, for example, the Equal Rights Act. This is a piece of legislation that guarantees, even at the level of the private sector and across the board outside of the government apparatus, equal treatment for women, in particular in the area of employment. So while the Constitution engenders equal opportunities for women and protects women against discrimination at the level of the state, legislation like the Equal Rights Act protects women outside of the state apparatus and in the private sector and in private endeavors as well. We have the Termination of Employment and Severance Pay Act. This is another piece of legislation that protects women from being dismissed, disciplined, or in any manner discriminated against because of reasons such as pregnancy and women-related issues. Then we have the Removal of Discrimination Act. This is another piece of legislation that removes discrimination from our children, including our female children, from any form of discrimination if they are born out of wedlock. And children born out of wedlock are accorded equal status as children born in wedlock. Then we have the Domestic Violence Act that seeks to create a series of criminal offenses in relation to domestic violence. Women are largely the victims of domestic violence. This legislation also has a series of mechanisms built in it that empowers a magistrate to exclude a man, for example, from his home, though he may own it by title, if he practices violence against any member of his family, including women. We have the Sexual Offences Act, another important piece of legislation dedicated largely to protect women and young girls from sexual abuse and to provide every gender against sexual abuse, but most particularly women are more often the victims of sexual abuse than men. Then we move over to the matrimonial type of legislation, and we have the Married Person Property Law that allows a woman now to claim equal rights to matrimonial assets, whether that person worked or not in the marriage. Being a housewife is now in law considered to be working for the purpose of division of property. And this law also recognizes common law unions. And if a single man is living with a single woman in a marital union for more than 5 years, but they have not been married legally, that woman is entitled to all the rights that a married woman would have been entitled to. This is a great victory for women living in common law relationships. Then recently we passed the Civil Law Amendment Act, and there's another piece of legislation that empowered women. And by this piece of legislation, women who were unmarried or are unmarried and whose husband dies, they have an equal right to apply to the court for letters of administration for the estate of that deceased husband, whether they were married or not, legally married or not. Prior to this amendment, only married wives could have qualified to apply for letters of administration upon the death of the deceased person. And I can go on to list other pieces of legislation of a similar genus, but I believe that I have cited a sufficiently large number to illustrate that we have a commendable framework of legislation, policies, concepts, and mechanisms within our governmental architecture, as well as within the state apparatus, that aggregate to form a formidable protective network in respect of women and to advance the cause of gender equality. And we must also look at what these institutional framework to which I've made reference has allowed women to achieve in our country. It is no coincidence, therefore, that the first and only female Prime Minister of our country is PPP's Janet Jagan. The first and only female President of the country is the PPP's Janet Jagan again. The first High Court female judge in the Caribbean and in Guyana was the Honorable Desiree Bernard. The first Chief Justice, female Chief Justice of Guyana and the Caribbean, again, the Honorable Desiree Bernard. The first female head of the judiciary of Guyana and the Caribbean, again, the Honorable Desiree Bernard. The first female judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice, again, the Honorable Desiree Bernard. And most of these appointments were made during the PPP's tenure in government. Today, the current acting chancellor is a woman. The current acting Chief Justice is a woman. We have perhaps more female judges in the judiciary than we have male judges. We certainly have more female magistrates than male magistrates. The Director of Public Prosecutions is a woman. And most of our prosecutors in that office are women. The Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel of the country is a woman. The Deputy Solicitor General is a woman. I spoke at an event yesterday at the University of Guyana where I recognized that the Chancellor of the University of Guyana is a woman. The head of the Department of Law is a woman. The Chief Magistrate is a woman. The head of the Social Science Faculty of the University of Guyana is a woman. I can speak to the number of women as ministers in our government. Our law provides for over 1/3 of the list of candidates contesting a national and regional elections in Guyana must be women. And I can go on. But I think the point is made. And that is why I said at the commencement of this program that Guyana has done well. We in this government have done well in the cause, in championing the cause rather, of gender equality and securing an equal place in our country for our women folk. So once again, before I move off of this topic, I want to salute all of our women on this special day and to recognize the significant contributions that they have made in molding our society and in building our country. And that brings me to the other topic that I would like to offer some brief remarks on. Many of you would recall the issue that arose a few days ago in the public domain regarding a civil society grouping that issued a blistering critical statement against the government. The government responded, and the government responded in twofold, in my respectful view. One, the government dealt with the messenger and dealt with the message. I was part of the government response. I dealt with the messenger or messengers, and I don't need to repeat what I said on that occasion. And I dealt also with the message. I said importantly that civil society and civil society organizations have a crucial role to play in the democratic equation of any society, including ours. That we in Guyana and in government enshrine that role in the form of a constitutional provision, Article 13. And I spoke about how these organizations must conduct themselves, how they must function, what information the public should know about them, that they themselves must function with rectitude, that they themselves must operate with due accountability and transparency if they want to mount the horse of transparency and accountability, that they will not be taken seriously and their criticisms will remain a hollow ring if they attempt to throw stones while they reside in glass houses. And then I note the ricochet effect in the press that resulted from the government's response. Certain segments of the society became very critical of the government. Certain segments of the press became very critical of the government, which lead me to the conclusion that it appears that there is a belief in some quarters that democracy allows for government to be criticized, and I agree. And the government has repeatedly stated that we welcome criticisms. But it does not appear that those segments of the press and those segments of society appreciate that the very democracy also permits the government to respond to those criticisms. It appears as though there is a belief that criticism is a one-way street, and that democracy recognizes the right to criticize the government, but does not reciprocate in the government a right to respond to those criticisms. Well, I don't agree at all that democracy is so blinkered. I don't believe for one moment that democracy suffers such limitations. Criticism is a thoroughfare. Dissemination of information must come from all sides. Freedom of expression embraces the free exchange and dissemination of information from all sides, all parties concerned. I do not subscribe to the view at all that the government can be the victim of criticism, but the government is not allowed to respond to criticisms. That is myopic, and that is a self-serving position to adopt. That is not what democracy is about. One has the right to allege, one has the right to defend oneself against allegations, one has a right to reply, and the other has a right to rejoin. That free exchange of comments, observations, criticisms, and commentary is what constitutes freedom of expression. It is that amalgam that is known as democracy. So, my friends, we in the government, we remain open to criticism. But we will reserve the right to respond to those criticisms. We will not be disrespectful. We will not be scandalous. We will try as far as possible, if the situation doesn't, once the situation doesn't permit it, we will not ascribe ulterior and disrespectful motive to the accusers. But trust me, if there is basis to attribute a motive, then we have a right to do so. The same right that members of the public have to direct at the government. Members of the public are entitled, if there is basis, to accuse the government of corruption, and they do, and the government endures that. We have a right to reciprocate where the circumstances warrant such reciprocity. So I thought that I would make these observations very clear so that we understand the basics of communication and the basics of free exchanges which form the foundation of a modern democratic society. There is no sacred cow, and I have repeatedly said that, and that includes the right to criticize even the judiciary, provided, of course, that it is done within the acceptable parameters in that regard. And I've spoken at length about that, so there is no need for me to reiterate my position on the judiciary. I will reserve that for another program because I intend to make some comments about certain judicial pronouncements. Today, the front pages of our daily newspapers carry a horrendous news story in relation to a fatal and unnecessary traffic accident that has claimed the lives of 3 persons, and a number of them are hospitalized. Recently, the Minister of Public Works, my colleague, the Honorable Bishop Juan Ejil, had cause to comment on the rate of traffic accidents on our roads. For decades, the carnage on our roadways have accounted for thousands of deaths. Most of them, in my respectful view, were unwarranted and could have been avoided. I believe if a proper comparative analysis is done, Guyana records, it will be found, that Guyana records one of the highest traffic accidents rates per capita, at least in the region, if not further afield. And we have to do something about these unnecessary deaths on our roads. We have to do something in the way we drive, in the way we use the roads. Drivers, cyclists, bikers, pedestrians, and other users of the road. I speak to the collective users of the road. We can't continue to waste the lives of our people in this callous and negligent manner. We can strengthen our laws, and we may move in that direction and bring greater regulatory framework in place. But it requires much more than that. The laws can only achieve results to a certain extent. It has to do with our culture. It has to do with our behavior. It has to do with our mentality. It has to do a lot with education and public awareness. We are now gripped by a cleanup campaign right across the length and breadth of our country. On the east coast of the Amarara, you would see me part of a comprehensive exercise to clean up that part of our country. And this momentum was started by no other than the president himself. And perhaps we need a similar type initiative directed towards using our roadways in a safer manner, so that we can begin the process of at least reducing this alarming killing rate that seems to be taking place in the roadways or on the roadways of our country. We simply can't continue with this wasteful carnage of human life. This right here is a human rights tragedy. And this is one area that knows no discrimination. It takes place in every part of the country with equal frequency. It involves young and old. All of the ethnic groups are victims and perpetrators. And I can go on. There is no single area that one can identify to say that there is less incidence here and more incidence in another part of the country, or there is some other statistical differentiation. Not at all. It permeates the entire road network of our country. So this is something that we have to speak more about, and perhaps at the level of the government, we need to do more. But I don't think that this is the responsibility of the government alone. This is the duty and responsibility of every single citizen, because it would appear as though no one is safe. Speaking for myself, I have stopped driving in Guyana for over 12 years now, and I don't think that I ever want to drive again. Not on the roadways based upon what I am seeing and what I'm reading and what I know is taking place. It's not a safe place. I pause here to go back to the television, to the phone. I see Deonarayan Jaipal. He's advising us to introduce Road Safety Week. That, I remember, was a thing of the past. We may have to revert and resort to those types of activities once again. I remember when we were going to school, you had Road Safety Week, you had road safety activities. We may have to go back to those things. Henry Singh, the driving culture has gotten away from law-abiding citizens. I agree with you, Henry. Shanta Kumar, why Gary Best not in jail for dangerous driving? Many people have been asking that question. He was acquitted by the court, as far as I recall, based upon the newspaper's report. then you have a series of. So I'm happy that I am exciting such discussions as I see taking place. Speed thrills and kills. I agree with you. Nishad Sharma is saying, well said, speed radars and cameras, if properly implemented, could be helpful. I agree with you. Compton Sevak, what is causing the delay in the case of Lowenfield and Mingo? All right, you are a little off the topic, but I can deal with that. Too many drinking and driving. I agree. So these are some. Nikhil Sankar, perhaps a review the effectiveness of driver's examination or the method of acquiring driver's license. Another pertinent recommendation. So I am happy to see such great number of recommendations, and such recommendations that are so sound in content being generated by this discussion. I will review them at the end of the program so that it can inform our discussion at the level of the government. But obviously, based upon the response I'm observing, this is an issue that a large part of our population feels very strongly about, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. So this brings me to the other topic that I want to discuss, and it is the prosecutors program, which was launched yesterday at the University of Guyana. I would not spend much time on it, as I spoke at length about it, and there is a video of what I said at the launch, and I am sure that many of you may have seen that video and heard the sentiments expressed by me on that platform. But I believe that this is a groundbreaking program. It is the first of its type in Guyana. It is the first of its type in the Caribbean. And I dare say it may be the first of its type in the Commonwealth region. I am sure that if we are able to make this a successful model, many other jurisdictions will try to emulate the example that we have set. This program is intended to enhance the quality of prosecution in the magistrates' court of our country. This initiative is intended to improve the quality of criminal justice system, of the criminal justice system, in order to balance the scales a little, as I said yesterday. The program will begin with the lectures tomorrow at the university. 70 odd students are admitted into the program, and they will commence their classes. 35 of that batch will be awarded a scholarship by the government, and they will be contracted to serve in the various magistrates' court in the country, along with the current police prosecutors that are operating in these courts. I am hoping that we can have an even geographic spread so that all the magisterial districts of our country can benefit from this program. I believe that it is a sound initiative, and we are going to make mistakes, as I said, but we are prepared to learn from this mistake these mistakes and make this a model that is workable and a model fit for others to emulate. I hope that persons, and in particular the civil society organizations and public commentators so concerned about transparency and accountability, are following the disclosures that are emanating from the Public Accounts Committee of our Parliament. Permit me to remind that the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament is the most crucial mechanism within the parliamentary structure that exact and extract accountability and transparency in relation to the expenditure of public funds. It is this institution that is empowered in law and by the Constitution and the standing orders to examine the Auditor General report, to interrogate that report, to investigate that report, to scrutinize that report, and to question areas that are worthy of questioning, interrogate transactions that are not transparent, investigate transactions where it is believed that public monies were squandered, wasted, stolen, or not spent in a fiscally prudent manner. The Auditor General is the auditor of all public accounts in relation to the expenditure of public funds for the entire state of Guyana. And that report, therefore, is one of the most powerful instruments that speaks to accountability and transparency and good governance. And it is that committee that has the jurisdiction and the functional responsibility to take that report to the other level, to investigate it. And that report, that committee, has tremendous powers. It has the power to summon any public officer, including ministers of the government, any statutory officer, any constitutional office holder, to that committee to answer in relation to the expenditure of funds, if it is necessary. That committee has the power to call in the police, to call in any agency, law enforcement agency of the state, and to recommend further investigation and even the institution of criminal charges. That committee sits every Monday. I understand now, in recent times, the proceedings of this committee is being streamed live. Right now, they are considering the audit report for the year 2017. And please follow the outrageous disclosures that are emanating from this committee about waste of public funds, about corruption, about mismanagement of public funds, about unaccountability of public funds, about lack of transparency regarding the spending of public funds, overpayment of public funds. But I am not seeing these commentators and these very civil society organizations so concerned about accountability and transparency, not commenting with the same gusto on these matters. And when you have this disparate treatment, when you have what appears to be prejudice and bias in public pronouncements, well, then you will have responses that reflect that. And that is the point I was making earlier in the program. The same way that you are holding this government to standards which you have a right to do, and which this government encourages you to do, we say with equal force and with the same emphasis that the previous government or different agencies, when they do things that you are accusing the government of, or have done things that you are accusing the government of, and these things are being made public, fairness would dictate and would demand that you have public condemnation in relation to those transactions as well. If not, you expose yourself to the accusation of prejudice, bias, and being possessed by or guided by some motive that is improper. That's all I am saying. And that brings me to the question of cost of living. I know, I live in this society, I live in Guyana, and we have had a rise in cost of living. The President has spoken about it. Our Finance Minister has spoken about it. Our Vice President has spoken about it. And government continues to unleash a series of measures intended to alleviate the rise in cost of living. It started with COVID, and the world has not recovered yet from COVID. The world has not returned to normalcy from COVID. We know of the widespread shutdown of factories and manufacturing centers, which have led to a paucity of goods and services. We know of the escalating cost of freight, both by carriage, both by sea and by air. That has not come down. We are importing these factors. These inflationary factors are being imported, and we have to deal with them here. Then in Guyana we have had floods, a series of floods, destroying our productive sectors, in particular our agri-sector, that by itself has resulted in a skyrocketing of food prices. The matter is now compounded by the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. The price of fuel has skyrocketed. It's now over $100 and something per barrel. Now, we are an oil producer, but we are not benefiting from that. We still have to buy oil and buy fuel on the oil market, on the world market. So we have to pay. We are a victim of that increase. Yes, we may get an increase in royalties, etc., but we get that annually, and that goes into the sovereign wealth fund, and we take that out annually. But on an everyday basis, we still have to acquire oil and fuel from the world market. We have been using guy oil as a regulator in terms of regulating the price of fuel. We have been using the excise tax and the tax system to help to alleviate the increase in fuel costs. So we have reduced the excise tax on fuel so as to bring the price down. And I'm told that Guy Oil is selling gasoline at the pump for $203 per liter and diesel at $220 per liter. But the other companies are selling at $250 something per liter for gas and $270 something per liter for diesel. So we are doing that which we can do, and as much as we can do in the government, to try to pacify the harshness caused by cost of living. And we will continue to find ways and means to make it easier. But it's a work in progress. And we ask your understanding, and we ask that you bear with us as we navigate against these operating factors, almost all of which are beyond our control. As I said, we are really inheriting these measures based upon what is taking place in other parts of the world. I wish I can continue this discourse, but my operator is signaling to me that we are approaching program time, but let me just deal with a couple of comments. Joycelyn Bishop Hussein says that it's normal what's taking place, it's happening all over the world. Dennis Balgobin is saying we are paying twice as much in Toronto. Chris Bishnudat says that he's watching the program. So I am happy that we are having this type of engagement, and I will continue. Gas is almost $380 in New York. I suppose he meant Guyana dollars. So the gas is more expensive in the United States than in Guyana currently. And that has to do with the fact that the US has stopped purchasing oil and fuel from Russia as part of the boycott, or part of the sanctions imposed. So K. Sharma says that gas is currently at $4.50 per gallon in the United States. So we have to do the conversion between gallons and liters to appreciate. I do not try to do it here before I make a mistake. And you know, if you make a mistake, then I can get myself in unnecessary problems. So I want to thank you very much for being with me over the past hour. I think that we have had a good program after a long hiatus, but I am back, and I want to thank you very much for joining me in this program. We will continue to have this type of discourse. Next week, I am scheduled to be with you, so please join us and we will have some degree of regularity going forward. I'll be leaving the country for a week, I think, later this month, but I'll inform you. But certainly, I will be here next week. So permit me to bid you goodbye until we meet again next week. Please stay safe and enjoy the rest of the week until we see each other again. Thank you and good night. Enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.